Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, March 15th. And isn't it great about how light it is outside? And depending on how long this meeting goes, it might even still be light when before the meeting's over. So spring is definitely, I think, right around the corner. We do have one addition to the agenda, and that is under the Public Works reports. That's item 12.5.b, and that is a report and memo with regards to the Lake Huron water supply system. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? So I had every intention of opening up tonight's council meeting, reminding everyone of the return of St. Patrick's Day activities in Lucan this weekend. However, after listening to President Zelensky's address to Parliament this morning, I really felt I had to put that aside. I am sure that you were like me and were riveted to his address. If you've not had the opportunity to watch it, I would strongly encourage you to take the time to find it online and watch it. This morning's statement to Parliament was historical. It really has been some time since I have been as moved as I was by a political leader. And I guess we really could call him a wartime leader. President Zelensky was personal, powerful, and masterful. It was courage personified. He made a war that is being fought tens of thousands of kilometers away from us relevant to all of us, by asking us to imagine what it would like to be to experience the horrors that Ukrainians are experiencing, to experience that here in our cities, at our destinations. What we are watching from afar is, in many ways, incomprehensible. It can be overwhelming. So much like the early days of the pandemic, I ask you to be mindful of the time spent watching the media reports on this war. If you have Ukrainian friends, please reach out to them to let them know that they are supported. I cannot imagine being here knowing that family and friends are in Ukraine, helpless, but resolute and extremely courageous. There are many reputable organizations that are collecting funds for aid in Ukraine. And if you are in a position to do so, I would encourage you to consider a donation. We do not know what the foreseeable future will bring. What we are watching is arguably the darkest hours for our world since World War II. This event could be a turning point for peace and democracy as we know it today. Be mindful and aware of what we are watching, look after your family, and really be thankful that we can drink green beer this weekend. We don't have to go into closed session, but we do have a public meeting that we is going to start our meeting off with. And so I do need a mover and a seconder to adjourn our council meeting in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under the Planning Act. If I can have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed. And that's carried. So in front of us, we have consent amendment application B-1-2022, and that is for a property in the Clandeboye area. And at this point, it's great to have Dan Fitzgerald with us tonight to take us through this, this process. So Dan, welcome, and I will hand it over to you.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So just for council's clarification, it is a concurrent application. So it's B-1-2022, as well as ZBA-1-2022, which is listed as item 2 on the meeting agenda. So we'll just hear them both here tonight for information. So the purpose of the application for the committee is to provide information pertaining to a proposed concurrent consent as well as zoning bylaw amendment application for a property that is municipally known as 34378 Bradley Street in Clandeboye. The consent application would consider the severance of a portion of vacant land currently located in the hamlet of Clandeboye from an existing industrial development with an established general contractor's use. So additionally, the zoning bylaw amendment application would consider a change of the zoning of lands proposed to be severed from a farm commercial exception C3-6-H holding zone to a site-specific farm commercial exception zone. And this will consider reducing interior side yard setbacks to 3 meters, permitting a maximum lot coverage of 45%, and also permitting the use self-storage facility on the site, in addition to all other current permitted uses of the C3 zone. So hopefully everyone can see that. So the subject property is a 1.6 hectare parcel, which is located on the east side of Bradley Street on the northeast corner of the intersection at Bradley and James in Clandeboye. The property is bordered by agricultural lands to the north and east, as well as the south, and commercial/residential properties to the west across Bradley Street. The property currently contains an existing commercial use on the southern half of the site, while the north half represents a vacant, undeveloped parcel of land. The property maintains private sanitary services in the format of septic system and would have access to municipal water, and access to the lands is provided through Bradley Street. The subject lands is within the hamlet settlement area of Clandeboye. This area of land is a designated hamlet in the township official plan, which does permit the use of residential, commercial, and industrial uses that do respect the existing character of the area. And as previously noted, this site is currently zoned a farm commercial exception holding zone. And as such, development would be permitted subject to site plan control, review, and any use that is currently permitted in the existing zone. As a concurrent application, the consent for severance would seek to accommodate a commercial development on the lands designated hamlet in the form of a self-storage establishment. The proposal would consider severing off a portion of lands with a frontage of approximately 100 meters on Bradley Street and an area of 0.9 hectares. So on the map, that's shown as the area that's hatched in black. The remnant parcel would have a frontage of approximately 91.9 meters on Bradley Street and an area of approximately 0.69 hectares in area. And that's shown here as the property that's outlined in black and shown as C3-6 on the map. So as previously noted, the concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted in order to establish a site-specific farm commercial exception zone, which would permit the use self-storage facility. They've also requested to reduce interior side yard setbacks to 3 meters and to permit maximum overall lot coverage of 45% on the land. So upon review of the application, I did receive a number of comments during circulation, both from internal and external agencies. Given the volume of comments that we did receive, I am recommending that the application be heard tonight for information purposes only to allow the applicant to respond accordingly to the comments that we have received. It should also be noted that a number of public comments have been received with respect to the proposal. These have been included in the planning report. We did receive a number of comments, at least one comment subsequent to the drafting of the report, which has been provided by the clerk to council in advance of the meeting. So given the above, I am recommending that this particular application be heard from information, and I'm looking forward to hearing from council and the applicant with respect to the proposal. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that, Dan. We do have the applicant with us, and I believe Ms. Crowley is going to speak on behalf of the applicant. So I don't know whether, Caitlin, you've got comment to make now, if there's anything that you wanted to add at this time.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Dan, for your work on this. So we did read staff's report, and we did note that there are, we've had additional correspondence with Dan separately, just to kind of firm up some of the servicing issues and fire suppression issues. So we are working through those changes to kind of modify the plans, and we will be submitting revised material. So we can agree to Dan's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. So at this time, I would ask the committee if there's any comment or questions with regards to the application in front of us. Councillor Regan.
Madam Mayor, I'm just seeking some clarification just with respect. I believe there was a letter from a resident that we just, is that the one we just received today from, I guess, Tina, if I can ask her, is from Ms. Fowler, Mrs. Fowler?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, I'm just wondering then, thank you, Tina. So I'm just wondering, at what point are these concerns addressed? There's a list of them here, and I'm just wondering, what would that be something we look at tonight, or is that something down the road that we would look at? I guess I'm asking Dan.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Reagan. So any comments that we did receive, we would work with the neighboring landowners, whoever it might be, to address those comments in advance of a further recommendation on the application. If they still have concerns, we certainly will seek to answer any concerns as part of a recommendation report back to council.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Manders.
I think I just more got a comment than a question. I like the site-specific zoning myself. It controls, again, it controls that site. If their intent, I realize, is not to sell the property, but as we all know, when we make a decision and you change that zoning to something more broad like industrial, I believe there was a comment made on another area where it was zoned industrial, and in this area with the apartment buildings and the horses in the areas there, I mean, I think this is a good zoning change and site specific to the storage. And I certainly, for a lot of the comments I have to do with, I believe, planning, site specific planning, but for zoning, I think this is acceptable myself. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments from the committee? Okay, so we do have one public attendee, and I just wondered, I don't know who is on, but Mr. and Mrs. Cunningham, did either one of you have a comment or a question that you'd like to submit at this point?
We're in the same zone and we're in the same municipality and everything. I just assume that we should be listed as the same zone. If I'm industrial and I'm paying industrial taxes, why is he not paying industrial taxes? They're not the same amount.
Okay, thank you. I think that is a comment that we could consider submitted for discussion. I'm looking actually to Dan for that. Yeah, he's shaking his head. So that when the decision is made, that would be a comment that we would take under consideration.
Okay.
Okay, is that it then, Heather?
Yeah, because everything else is just regarding fire suppression and everything else that I've had to follow.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, so if there are no other comments at this time, I'd ask for a mover and a seconder, as we know, as Dan's explained, just to receive this report for information, as there needs to be some more work done on the application. So the first motion that we're going to consider would be for report PL 05-2022 be received for information. And that has to do with the consent amendment application portion of the report. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all opposed? And that's carried. So now I need a mover and a seconder for the committee to rise and move into a public meeting at 6:15 under Section 34 of the Planning Act, and this is at what point we'll consider the zoning bylaw amendment application. So a mover and a seconder to move into the public meeting. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? That's carried. I don't think much needs to be addressed on that. Dan's walked us through it. The only public comment that was received was from the Cunninghams around the question of zoning, and that will be addressed when it becomes time to consider the application. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report PL-05-2022 as information. So a mover and a seconder. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed, and that's carried. And then another mover and a seconder to adjourn our public meeting at 6:16 and reconvene our regular council meeting. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all opposed, and that's carried. A lot of motions, but I thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to the application coming through at a date in the future. So thank you very much for joining us. Okay, we don't have any delegations tonight, so we'll move right on to the minutes in front of us. We do have one set of minutes in front of us from March the 1st. And if nothing has to be amended, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes as circulated. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All opposed? Those are carried. Business arising from them. I don't believe that anything was added to the business arising. Was there anything from those minutes that council wanted to be added to business arising? Okay, then we'll move on to correspondence. There were a number of items that have been received in the last couple of weeks, but there hasn't been any that have been pulled by staff, although when we had our agenda meeting, I think both Ron, Tina, and I wanted to highlight the notice from Middlesex County about their official plan public open house meeting. And if you were interested in attending, the details can be there. That's Thursday, March the 31st, and that's at 7 o'clock. And I don't know, Ron, whether you had much to add to that. I think all the information is right there.
Yeah, all the information's right there if anybody wants to join. Not sure, have to reread it again whether you have to pre-register, but just click on the link if there is one. So.
Yeah. Were there any items from communications that council wanted to discuss or have a question on? All right, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive correspondence items 10.1 to receive them for information. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. On to committee reports. Blue Water.
We meet on Thursday.
Okay. CEDC, Lisa.
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled for March 23rd at 6:30.
And is that virtual?
Yes.
Lake Huron, we did meet last week, and there was one interesting report that has come through, and it was for information, but there's been a lot of background information, or a lot of background work that's been done in, well, since I've been on the board, which is 12 years, with discussions with Oneida on the Thames about bringing water to them. And we've entered into, not an agreement yet, but we've entered into steps to follow the process to bring them on as a member municipality, and to get safe drinking water to them. And, you know, I think it's interesting, we made the point that Quite often we think of First Nations that have water quality issues as being far away from us in Northern Ontario, but they are our neighbors. And so if we can get this agreement in place, and obviously they would be working with the federal government for funding for a project of this size, it certainly would be a great news story for our region, and I'll certainly keep you posted on that. Fire boards, we have upcoming meetings. The Lucan board it meets tomorrow, and the Granton board meets on, or the Biddulph Blanchard meeting meets on Monday. ABCA and Upper Thames, and I know that I don't think you've got any meetings to report on, Councillor Westman, but I know that you did want to say something.
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you. I think everybody's aware of the tragic situation that happened up in Mitchell, Ontario, where a 10-year-old girl fell into the river and unfortunately was found deceased yesterday. This brings me to something that we should be talking about every spring and throughout the year even, but water safety. With the thaw and the ice is melting and moving, there's a lot more water in the rivers, and there's a lot more water standing in fields and in ponds, and the ice is soft where there has been ice, and people are maybe still walking on that or going near the riverbeds or riverbanks. Riverbanks become very slippery this time of year because they're partly thawed with an icy, hard bit underneath them. So keep an eye on your kids, educate them, talk to them, make sure they understand that they're not to go near the water. It's very dangerous because it can turn on a dime. It can happen so quickly and in such tragedy. And the family of this little girl are feeling that more than any of us right now. And I would really hope that no other family should ever have to endure this. So let's be thoughtful, talk to our children, talk to our neighbors, our friends, our family, make sure everyone understands that this time of year especially, it's very dangerous to be near even standing water like ponds and ditches. So be careful and be aware, and let's be safe. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. In Parks and Rec, there's the draft minutes from the March 2nd meeting. And Paul's not joining us this evening. So if you have any questions, I know that Councillor Hodgins or Councillor Regan could answer anything other than, but you're also welcome to have an offline discussion as well for clarification. Moving into staff reports. Ron, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as a follow-up to, I believe the report was done or presented to council at the second meeting in February. This is in regard to the potential sale of township property located on the south side of Nick Line between Sainsbury Line and Elm Street. And I won't repeat what was said before. There was a few details that we needed to look into. Since that time, it's been determined that there's a Bell phone line on the east boundary of this property, and the Public Works Department has also determined that the sanitary sewer line that runs up the middle of the lot can be or could be relocated to the east boundary, as well as there's a current, I guess for lack of a better description, a Big O, a private tile that brings water that's collected at the rear of the lots in that area to the front. And that can all be located within the same 4 to 5 meter wide easement. There was also some discussion about possibly making this into a bit of a park space for a number of reasons. I can't support that as a member of staff. I think with the location of the Elm Street Park around the corner, I think there's plenty of opportunity, recreation opportunities in the area. I would have a different opinion if this was a very highly densely packed residential area, say with apartment buildings on either side, or the type of townhouse development that we see at the north end. I simply think the size of the properties in this area, there's lots of green space on the existing lots that really it's not necessary. So to shorten this whole process up, basically I'm presenting council with two options. The first option is to simply do nothing. It costs us nothing to maintain now. The neighbors on either side cut the grass. You know, there's no cost at the present time to the municipality to leave it there. So that is one option. Or the other option is to potentially throw it up on the market and see what kind of bids we can get on it. And that would be my recommendation, is to see what we can get on that. That is a valuable piece of property. It is 66 feet by 266 feet deep. Those lots are few and far between. So there is quite a bit of value in there, and council could realize potentially, you know, a good dollar amount. The estimate is somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000. Certainly the treasurer can attest we need the money. We've got lots of projects that could use that money. You know, everything from the skate park relocation to soccer fields to the community center project. So there's no shortage of where we could use that money. If it was sold, you would not only be looking at revenue from the purchase price of the lot, you would also, you know, there would be a house built on it. There would be an additional water and sewer connection, and there would be property taxes each and every year from that house. So, Madam Mayor, like I said, I've got potentially basically two options for council to consider. I know my friend Mr. Reagan, Councillor Reagan, has a different opinion, and that's fine. That's what it's all about here. So I throw it open to any questions from the members of council.
Okay, thank you for that, Ron. Okay, comments, questions from council at this time. Councillor Westman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just moving sewer lines and so on, that doesn't sound particularly cheap, but I would imagine it wouldn't be a horrendous amount of labor to do that. But I think I would be interested in liquidating that. I mean, we do have, it's surplus to our needs, and we obviously do need some money to make some of our community improvement projects go. And so I would be open to liquidating that property.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, no, I'm of the same opinion. I think, you know, I believe anyways that expense will be to the buyer, not to the taxpayer anyway. So we'd be able to know exactly how much we're getting net anyways, and that would be stipulated in the bid. And then even then, I look at that point in time, that'll be the decision whether we sell it or not. I think we need to see what value that asset is, and then decide if it's, you know, again, we're not used, you know, we're not using it. So again, the time to decide whether to sell it or not will be at the time we see the value of it. And I think that's important that we do find that out, and that'll be the time maybe to discuss further. But I agree with our CAO that probably is not a good use for that particular spot for green space, and with the park nearby. And no, I think we should proceed to see what we can get for it. So.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw Councillor Reagan's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So no, I do understand that, you know, the value of that. I understand that there's you know, the other projects that we have to do. I think about our population growth over the next, you know, 5, 10, 15 years. I think about the fact that we, you know, and I didn't know we had that property. Actually, I know there's a park, you know, Ron, or the CAO is put 200 meters away, and I understand that as well. I'm just thinking about, you know, they're not making any more land. And I'm just thinking at some point down the road, we may in fact need it. And I'm just thinking too, after all is said and done, just sort of what would that value of the land be? I mean, would it, you know, is it 300,000? Is it 100,000? I don't know. So, I mean, that's something that I would, you know, before we, I guess, make that final decision. But I really think about like 5, 10 years from now, like is that something we would need that for? Just you know, and again, I know it's not costing us anything right now to do that. But I think we need to sort of think about what else we could use that for before we sell it, because once we sell it, it's gone. So again, I think we need to look at it more. And I got to be honest with you, I really wouldn't be in favor of liquidating it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Regan. Any other comments or questions with regards to the report in front of us? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we do it on the, like, if we do go towards selling this, would there be conditions on the sale of that to control, I guess, what would get built or developed on that property? Or I guess, how would that be controlled?
Ron?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Hodgins. Yes, we would stipulate on there that, you know, the cost of moving the sanitary sewer to the east boundary, the cost for establishing the proper easement on the left side there. Another condition would be that it would be a single family home, that you can't build, you know, a triplex or something on there. I don't think that's really what's envisioned for that area as well, because there are substantial homes in that area. So, you know, right now I'm thinking we would put that in there as a stipulation that it has to be a single family home.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Another question. I wonder, have we considered relocating the sewer in advance of the sale? Just, I'm thinking that potentially going ahead to sell it with that condition that the sewer has to be moved, if that would limit potential purchasers, and maybe reduce the amount of money we're bringing in. I'm just wondering if that was something being considered or thought about, knowing that the township probably has the technical know-how of how to get that moved.
Madam Mayor, if I can defer that question to our Public Works Manager.
Yes, and through the mayor, we have had that discussion, Councillor Hodgins, and it is something that we would look at, because we would want to put the easement in place. The biggest part, though, is that by doing it first, we put the outlay of money into that investment. But I do agree that we do have to have that easement in place. So we haven't really made that final decision on which way to go. We have talked about it both ways, because whoever does buy the property will have the capability. They'll have to put the sewer line in. They'll have to hook the water up. So there will be, will almost be a second, party in the play of everything there. So, but I think before we get into those details, we were looking more for direction, whether to continue the process and deciding whether to sell it or not. So, but that's certainly on the table. We will definitely have the easement in place before being sold.
And maybe one final question, if I may.
Absolutely.
Would we have the opportunity, or would we consider a condition for that to be built on or developed within a certain timeline? Like, I'm just wondering if someone purchased that property just to own property with the thought that maybe the value is going to go up more so in the future. Would that be an issue if we sold it and then that person is just holding onto a piece of land?
So similar to the condition we put on at the industrial park. Ron?
I was just going to say exactly that, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the legalities of being able to do that. I would suggest that because we can do it at the industrial park, we would be able to do it here, but I would have to consult with the lawyer first before I could say for positive whether that's possible.
I'm good for now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Deputy Mayor Manders, you had something else to add?
Yeah, I'd want to be, it's funny, I had a quick change of my thought when Jaden brought up two things. And one is the intent to have to build in case the two neighbors on each side decide to purchase it and want to leave everything as is, have the easements there, and then just simply add the property to either side. So again, I think we need to, if we would force the neighbors not to buy it to add on to their property. I have not talked to the neighbors at all. I'm just thinking if I was there, potentially I would talk to my neighbor and say, hey, let's try to buy this and not build on it. So that stipulation, I wouldn't want to have to handcuff them. That's all. That's just a comment. Because I think it'd be, that could be entertained by them. So I'll leave that up to staff how to figure that one out. And then the other thing I just wanted to confirm, because with Jade made an interesting point there, and I don't know if Jeff answered it to my satisfaction. I think Jaden asked, are we going to move, or I would like to know, are we, the potentially of us to move the infrastructure to set up a clean sale of a lot? Is that what staff will potentially do? Or only the easement area you were talking about? Or are you talking about that, I think it'll be interesting. And I think we need to make sure we realize that if we get a price in and we don't like the price, even if it's a fairly decent price and it scared people away from having to deal with excavators and companies to move the infrastructure, they get scared away maybe on a price, it could really earmark it to a few people. So does that make sense? I don't have an issue us not moving the infrastructure. I might have an issue with us accepting the price of it because it scared too many people off.
Yes, so through the mayor. So to be honest, we haven't made a decision on whether we're going to move the sanitary. We can't do it ourselves. We'll have to hire a third-party company to come in to move it. So if we decide to make a clean lot, then we would have to hire a third company to do it. It ends up, in my opinion, we start putting more costs into the lot than if somebody were to buy it and develop it. They're going to have to bring in the excavators anyways. They're going to have to do all that no matter what. For us to come in and do it, we're adding a second step. Now, at the same time, it does, and Ron and I have had this discussion, it does clean up the lot. But really at this point, we haven't gone any further to make that decision, whether we would do it or whether we would sell the lot with the expectation that the buyer would move the lot.
A couple more things first.
And just one other thing I just wanted to point out too, that the drain itself, the drain that's on there is going to remain a private drain. So that will not be the township's drain. So the person who buys the lot will have to, I'm not even sure if the drain has to move because it's close to the west boundary, but that will be their responsibility for sure, because they'll want to have their own drainage on their own lot. So they'll design the lot drainage to meet their needs, as well as the stipulation that drainage in the backyard has to go to the front. So there already will be some conditions on the lot that have to be met by the I don't want to call it a developer, but by the person that buys it. So, but to be honest, we haven't made the decision whether it's beneficial to move the sanitary ourselves or leave it as a request that whoever buys the lot.
Sorry, Ron, I just want to add a couple things added. And sorry, Jeff, and again, when I say you move it, I kind of mean you overseeing moving it third party. I did not mean our guys doing it, just so everyone's clear. And then, and again, what we don't know, we'll never know is, again, adding that expense to the lot, the question is, does that bring an extra 500 buyers to bid on the lot, as opposed to being scared of dealing with, again, and that was Jaden's point, and I do agree with it. But then the flip side is if owners adjacent to that property decide to buy it, there may be no moving of infrastructure. But again, I think maybe we don't worry about moving the infrastructure, but if we feel that hampered the bids, hence we know how crazy the market is, and we have one or two bids on that lot, we probably should consider then making it a clean lot and then relisting it. Just a comment. Thank you.
Okay. Ron, did you have something to add?
Well, I was just thinking out loud, and maybe what we do, Madam Mayor, is we ask for 2 bids. 1 bid, if it's a clean lot and the township's moving the sanitary, you know, they'd be willing to give this amount of money. Or if they're willing and capable of moving it themselves, then here's their bid. If, you know, if there's 2 bids, maybe that's the way to do it. So then we really see what it's worth, and we don't, you know, preclude people who don't have access to those, you know, excavators and things like that could move that infrastructure. So,
yeah, that I think could be an option. I mean, I think if there's direction that's given this evening to staff that's the direction we're going to head in, is to potentially sell this lot. I think then a further report has to come back as to how is that going to be managed? How is that going to be done? And I think those questions about, you know, the infrastructure moving it could maybe be explored further at that time. So, okay, any other comments on this? Okay, so Ron's given us 2 options. We don't have a prepared motion, but I guess I'm looking to my colleagues for somebody to provide a motion to start with, to give some direction as to moving forward. Deputy Mayor Manders.
I'll make a motion that that staff begin to prepare a solution to sell that property. That obviously that are, and again, you know, to list the property to see if we would like to sell it at that price. So, yeah.
Okay, and then again, just to clean it up, I guess, to bring back a report as to how that sale would look, because,
sure.
Okay, good. So that's moved by Deputy Mayor Manders. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Westman. Is there further discussion on that? Councillor Hodgins.
Maybe just a point of clarification, just for this motion. I guess we're sending it back to staff for a future report with more details about the how it will be sold. But is this motion then I guess the approval or the go ahead from council to sell it, or will there be another vote, just to clarify?
Okay, Ron.
through you, Madam Mayor, the ultimate decision will come down, like the Deputy Mayor did say, if none of the bids are satisfactory to the members of council and they say, no, that's not worth it, then the answer is no, and it doesn't sell, and we close the book on that. So ultimately it comes right down to the very moment in which council will either accept or reject the what assumedly would be the highest bid.
Does that clarify things for you, Jaden?
Maybe the process a little bit, but by this motion being passed, I guess that does give staff the authority to make the sale.
No.
Not to make the sale, but I think to prepare us for at least, I mean, I think we're headed down that direction, to somehow make that property for sale. But as Ron said, not until if we're going through a sealed process, it wouldn't be until we get those bids that we're in or we're out. Ron, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so the next step will be a council report comes back that says, you know, motion number 1, council has to declare that they want to sell this piece of property formally. Motion number 2 will be that you forego section, I forget what section it is in bylaw 47 2017, that says you're not going to offer it to, you know, the province of Ontario or the the country of Canada or all these other agencies. So there's motions that have to go through. And then I think at that point, hopefully I'm going to have some legal advice as to the answer to your questions as to whether we can put in there that it does have to be built for a single family home only. It can't be for townhouses or for a row house or a 3-story walk up or anything like that. It's got to be specific, and then whether we can put a time limit on that as well. So I hope to get all those questions answered and put that in the report for council.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Any other clarifications required or comments to be made? So we do have a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. All opposed to that motion. And that motion's carried. Okay. Ron, did you have some verbal updates to bring at this point?
Just a quick sort of catch up, I guess. Everybody's aware that Unmasking Day is obviously the 21st of March, next Monday. So in all the municipal facilities, it will no longer be mandatory for masks. It'll be optional. So it'll be up to the individual choice as to whether that person wants to wear a mask or not. The municipal office is open. And yeah, we hope, I was going to ask council for a general discussion as to moving back into council chambers. I think the mayor and I and Lisa DeBoer had a discussion yesterday. We would like council to consider moving back into council chambers for the first meeting in April 5th. For the first little while, we'll try just the members of council and staff. I don't think it's still going to be publicized through a YouTube channel, so people can still watch. So I would just like to get council's feedback as to whether that's something that they would be interested in and whether we can aim for that date or not. So Madam Mayor, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add in there.
No, I think you summed it up. I think the target would be for that first meeting in April. And just a reminder that first meeting in April is actually a daytime meeting. It's a 9 o'clock meeting. So to put that in your calendars, but looking to everybody around the horseshoe. I did have to chuckle though, Ron, a return to council. Some of us haven't been in council chambers for a meeting, and it would be great to have the experience of having Councillor Hodgins in an actual in-person meeting before our term is up. And he's giving the thumbs up. So I guess I'm looking for a nod of the head if we're comfortable shooting for that target date of I think it's April 5th for an in-person. Okay, there you go.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. That's what I had.
Okay. Nothing from building and bylaw. Finance, Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report I have for you tonight is for your information only. Just wanted to give you a bit of a background and some points about Infrastructure Ontario loans so that you have that in the back of your mind and can think about over the next few weeks how that process works or how you may have questions. So we have a number of projects that came up in the budget that would probably need debt financing of some form. And I have those listed there, and I'll talk about them in a minute. But Infrastructure Ontario has different kinds of loans. The more traditional one is the long-term loan that we have already a couple in place that we're used to using. But they also have a short-term borrowing. It's like a floating rate capital loan. Works like a line of credit. So you'd pay interest only for up to a maximum of 5 years, and then you could either pay it off or convert it to a long-term loan, depending on the situation and what. But I wouldn't anticipate those are maybe for longer-term projects, but these projects are more in the current year. But we could use it to our advantage, which I'll get into in a second. Also, the timing of the loans is this year's unique because it's a election year in the province. So there will be a bit of a blackout period where they can't approve loans. So I'll be try to move quickly on this in the next month. Because I'm waiting for a few more numbers, but just want to give you the background. So there's our three projects. We have of course, the phase 2 community center renovation project. And that one we know is going to be largely financed by the government grants and also our fundraising campaign, and potentially saving or using, going with a loan route for the remainder, should there be a remainder. And also we have the soccer field land development, which is a new project. So we haven't had a lot of time to save for that development. We saved up enough and we're able to purchase the land with what we saved over the past few years. So we need some potentially funds to develop that. And then our Saintsbury Line road improvement project. It's a large dollar value there. And some of these projects will be considered for future DCs, a portion of it potentially, see how that plan comes out. But in any case, these three, they're potentially going ahead, or they will be going ahead this year. And we still have to pay the contractors in a timely fashion before some of that cash flow comes in. So that's really affecting our cash flow. So we're looking at really exploring that option of the short-term loans to get the money up front, and then see what we need to then convert into long-term loans. So this is really just information, give you some ideas what we're thinking about. And then once we have some more of the final numbers for the soccer field, I think that's currently out for tender. And the Saintsbury Line project, we should know that soon. I think we should know that by the end, all those things by the end of the month. So my goal is for the first meeting in April is to bring a bylaw forward that would authorize staff to continue with the loan application process and those documents. And I'll gather more information in that time frame as well. So that's really the gist of it. Just wanted to give you that background so that you had it before I brought forward that that bylaw so we can hopefully get that approved and start to get the ball rolling in April if council chooses to do that. But I would be my suggestion that we go this route because we will need this to help with the cash flow on those big projects until some of that funding comes in.
Okay, thank you for that, Catherine. Comments from council. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Catherine, I'm just wondering with the loans and just all the talk about increase in interest rates and that sort of thing, and whether that would affect us or not. But I'm just wondering, is this something we should be moving on quickly so we can get lower rates, or is it something that's going to affect us? I'm thinking maybe residents might be thinking, considering we're talking about, rates going up. I'm just wondering how that would affect this and what we should be doing.
Well, I'm hoping that we can start the process so we can get it approved in April. Otherwise, we would have to wait until the end of summer to go through the process, which by then we would be in a sticky situation with our cash flow because the projects will be deep into it with paying the contractors. But I can't speak to what the future rates will hold. The rates have gone up in the past little bit, and they're probably expected to rise. And although there's potential to lock in interest rates, but that's risky. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. But all those things will be considered when I go into more detail with their representative from Infrastructure Ontario. Just all those considerations, kind of what's our best option and what our next steps are. But definitely need to move quickly, or we have that blackout period. And also, if we apply now, we can still use our 2020 figures. Not to say our 2021 figures wouldn't be bad. The timing of getting that back wouldn't be until later in the year, till summertime. So that's another consideration. So we're trying our best to move quickly on that if that's the direction we need to go.
Right.
Hope
Okay.
that answered your question.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just wondering a couple things. What do you need for them to approve the loans? Kind of, do you need the quote and council's overall approval, or what triggers you to be able to submit for a loan?
So there's different things within that borrowing bylaw. So there would be the motions to approve those projects. So I'm hoping that those tenders and things will be kind of through that process. And then they will need some other, like, have to go through the actual loan application process. They also need our financials from 2020. They'll need, they wanted a statement on like how we dealt with COVID, other funding, and those kinds of things that have to be submitted with it. And then
I was wondering, actually, the answer to my question right there is from the standpoint of the project, just the project itself, it basically an approved project by council. It's the kickstart. That's what I was wondering. The kickstart with a quoted approved vendor.
Well, that's more the approval of the project, I guess. Yeah. So to continue, so because in that borrowing bylaw, I think you have to list as one of the attachments the resolution or the bylaws that authorize those projects to continue, because those loans can only be used for specific items that they're intended for.
Okay.
So we can't say, oh, we want $1 million and then decide later what to do with it. It's got to be for those projects, because they only approve certain kinds of projects, and all these are infrastructure projects that would qualify anyway.
And can we do, if we get one in now and then there's a blackout, can you submit multiple ones throughout the course of the years, like throughout the course of a year?
Yes, you can do as many loans as you like. What we're going to try to do is potentially do all these in one loan so that we can save on legal costs. Otherwise, you have to have legal opinions on each one. But so we're looking at that as well, what those options are, what that looks like. So if we have another project later in the year that we want to debt finance, then we can do another loan up until there is a maximum. We have that annual repayment limit that we're allowed, but we're nowhere near that. So that would be a document that I would bring forward, as well as where we're at with the loan. The province allows you to borrow only a certain amount, or have your payments can only be a certain amount each year, but we're nowhere near that.
And then, that's good. And then is there ever a fear, if there's a change of government, of changing this sort of availability, or no? Is it typically, never matters what party typically? Ron? Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I could maybe take an answer to that. Infrastructure Ontario has been around for, probably the better part of, I'm going to guess, 15 years. And it's sort of non-political. To answer your question, it doesn't matter what party is in. That's sort of an arm's length body that looks after that. And they've been around for a long time. So
okay. Oh, good.
I don't expect that to change. So.
What about, Madam Mayor, comment on the big piggy bank of the county?
Well, actually, that was in my notes, actually, to ask Catherine, because there is ability for us to borrow money through the county as well. And Ron's more familiar, I think, with that process, although I know that Catherine knows about it, but Ron's gone through it. I think we can borrow up to $1 million. I think maybe that is it. Now, there's potential for that program to change, given that in the last year or so, the county has come into some money, and they're looking to do, and it's obviously from the sale of the building, and we still have yet to receive a report from staff as to how that infrastructure program will change to benefit the municipalities in the county. But there is ability to borrow money from the county. Maybe
with that ability. I believe Ron obviously going to speak to it. There is some restrictions sometimes to the amount of times would maybe be better set aside to use that card. Potentially, maybe I'm wrong on this, would be something like the sewer plant expansion, but just making a comment on that. I have no idea if I'm saying it's even right.
Okay, Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Dave, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Manders, you're correct. We are limited under the current set of rules to a certain number of projects, and I think we just finished paying off one. So I think we've got one opening, and then we are quite hopeful that with the extra money that the county has in their coffers right now, that they will be expanding the number of projects that are allowed. But under the current rules, it used to be that they actually loaned the municipalities up to $1 million. They found that they were able to do the same thing by letting the municipality, the lower tier municipality, actually borrow the money, and the county would simply pay the interest costs on that $1 million. So they could do more with the same pot of money. So they changed that quite some time ago. But I'm still hopeful that they're going to at least double that, so that they would pay the interest for 10 years on say $2 million. That would be helpful as well. So.
Okay. So it sounds like, as Madam Mayor said, there's more to follow on that from the county side, and we've got lots of projects, especially the one I can think of that would be, into the future would be the sewer plant expansion. So, no, very good. Thank you.
Any more comment or questions? I am just on the projects, I guess, and it was touched on. We haven't addressed the pool project or the skate park, and we don't have. Obviously, council hasn't decided anything definitive about the pool or anything. But certainly, if we're looking at bundling those projects together, should the pool and the skate park also be the relocation of the skate park be considered?
I did think of that because those projects haven't really been forthcoming. We're waiting for more information from other staff reports in the future. And if we go after funding for these projects that we have ongoing, those, like I said before, the funding is for those specific projects. So it doesn't say we can't, once we know more information on the pool or the skate park projects and the timing for that, we could do another loan application or see what other sources of funding we have for those. So that's why I didn't include them on this one, because I didn't have those details to be specific to we already could use those.
I guess I might encourage maybe, especially the skate park. I know that the pool is almost another project on its own, that a number of things have to be considered. But the skate park, given the discussion that, the concerns that Councillor Regan just brought up about the rising cost of interest rates increasing and all of that, to me, I think that would be a prime project to lump in with everything else and just get it done. But so maybe I could encourage staff to maybe kind of look into what that might look like. I know that there's been nothing formally done on that side of things, but it is a piece of infrastructure that we're going to be losing this summer, and it would be great if we could replace that sooner rather than later.
Okay, I'll put that in my notes and ask those other questions to my contact at IO and see how we could work with something like that.
Okay.
See how that works.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions on Catherine's report? Okay, so with that, we do have a motion in front of us that report number FIN-04-2022 be received for information. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. Did you have anything else, Catherine?
No, thank you.
Okay. Planning, I don't think we have anything else. Nope. Public Works, Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of reports tonight. The first one will be on the Fallon Drive water main extension. Just to give council an update, we did close the tenders on the Alice Street Saintsbury reconstruction, as well as the Fallon Drive water main extension. On the Alice Street Saintsbury, it is a joint project with the county. So those numbers and those tenders will have to be reviewed at the county level or in conjunction with the county before we make any recommendations to council on that tender. So that'll come back to council on April the 5th. So tonight I do have the Fallon Drive water main extension results. And just to give a little background, this is an extension of the water main on Fallon Drive that runs from basically just west of the current Heenan Court industrial road complex there. It does end at six inch there and continues to the Lucan wastewater treatment plant at a 2-inch diameter. Approximately 2 years ago, we did sell a chunk of property for an industrial property to be developed just west of the wastewater treatment plant. So as part of that sale, the water main had to be extended, 6-inch size had to be extended to that property. It's about 300 meters in length, and when and that was part of that the sale of that property. So when we closed the tenders, at the budget we originally I had was $60,000, and that was based on, at the time, we had done the Nagel water main extension. So we knew the prices at that time, and we added some costs for increases. But as we went through this process in the last 6 months, prices have gone up considerably in the water main installation side of things. So when we closed the tender, our low bid tender came back at basically $113,236, almost twice over the budget. And it was submitted by Clarence Carter and Sons, local contractor. Dillon Consulting did review the tenders and does recommend the low bid be accepted. The impact on the budget. So what we got, this extension is being, or was planned to be paid out of the proceeds from the sale of the industrial land. And Catherine can comment on, we did put 60,000 in the water budget to cover that. Now, obviously, we don't have enough in there, so Treasury will follow up on the required additional funding, and we can bring back a more detailed, where that money is going to come from. The discussion is it'll still come from the proceeds, but those proceeds have been put back into the reserve accounts, and so we want to make sure council's aware of that money and how it's moved through. So that it will be funded through the sale of the land. We just got to make sure that it's showing where the money's coming from. And that's basically it. So we're recommending the low tender.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Questions? Usually these are straightforward, but this one I think is a little startling, but.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks. Just wondering, timing for the project. Is this being done this summer?
Yeah, so the timetable is on this to do this summer. The contractor has submitted to start in May and have finished by end of June into July. So that fits right in with our expectations.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, then we do have a motion in front of us that report PW-05-2022 be received, and that council accepts the tendered bids submitted by Clarence Carter and Sons and awards the same. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. And then the next report, Jeff.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So my next report is on the is a report that is on the status of the Lake Huron water supply system. There's a lot of most people on council, except for the exception of Councillor Hodgins, this has been an ongoing process. There was a presentation put forth by Andrew Henry, the director of the regional water supply system, to council about the reasoning of what's happening here. The mayor and myself were appointed to a steering committee that was to sit in on to bring these items forward. It's come to light that basically, and I don't want to get into a whole bunch of background, but it basically comes back to that the legal status of the current Lake Huron water supply system is in question. And so there's some concern, or there is concern, that we have to straighten that out. We have to have a definition of how that system works and legally and how it exists in today's form. So having said that, we've been the steering committee, which I've said the mayor and myself are on, as well as representatives from all the other benefiting municipalities that are on the water system, as well as the Elgin system is in the same situation. Even though I talk about the Lake Huron one, which we are on, we are doing a steering committee that takes into account both systems. And it's certainly in the brief that Andrew provided. It does state that there is a number of options that we can work together, we can work separately, and that sort of thing. So, but basically what I want to do is keep it fairly simple in my report. What we really need to do what's before us is there's two options if we want to move forward. So there's the option to have a joint municipal service board, and there's an option to have a municipal services corporation. We can have one or the other. There is benefits to each, and as well we can basically one or the other. And I don't like calling it an option, because even in the brief, it's not described as an option. But we can also not do anything. We can sit and just let things lie. I think it's important as a representative on the steering committee, and I think the mayor would agree with me, that we believe that sitting and not doing anything is not an option, that we truly believe that some sort of, we have to move forward. We have to decide one way or the other and have a definition put in place on how the Lake Huron water supply system should look and operate. And so in my report, or in this, I'm recommending that we move forward. I'm not recommending one or the other of the so-called options, because we've been talking amongst other municipalities, and even Andrew Henry has recommended that we ourselves do some of our own homework, and we investigate and look into legal evaluations of what the benefits of each one of these options are, and come up with our own decision. This isn't about Lake Huron telling us what the best decision is. It's about us determining what the best decision is for ourselves and for the Lake Huron board. So in my recommendation, I'm looking for council's support to keep moving forward, so we don't stall this out. We all know that if we stall it out, we could end up back at square one with new council members and basically starting this process again. And then follow it up with starting to do that investigation, with which the first step would be to get legal advice on which is the best situation that we should follow. So that's my recommendation. I maybe should leave it at that and open it for questions. And I'm sure that the mayor might have a comment or two also, because she sits on the committee.
No, I think you summed it up quite well, Jeff. I think we just need to keep moving in this process. You and I have been part of it for 18 months, and I think stalling it, it does not make any sense. It does take it back to square one. And as you can see in the briefing report that has been supplied to us, you know, there is some ambiguity out there as to how the water supply system is operating under the Municipal Act, and it doesn't fall, the way it's structured right now, it doesn't fall under the Municipal Act. There are things that they can do in partnership with the City of London to cover them, but they've come to a size where they really need to, solidify and clear up how the governance, what the governance model is. So, questions or comments or anything? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm not sure if you or Jeff could answer, but so just by not moving forward, is there a risk here of it being dictated to us how this operates, if I'm understanding it correctly? Or like, I agree with what Jeff's saying. It's just, I'm just wondering about to do nothing would be just to, I mean, that would be, I'm assuming anyway, what I'm hearing is just a disaster for us, just not to not do anything. So moving forward is of course the best option. But I'm just wondering, is there a fear of it being dictated to us or losing control, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And through the mayor, I from what I've been through in our meetings is that if we do nothing or if we vote for nothing, we'll keep the status quo, meaning that the representation that sits on the board will stay the same. There won't be anything along those lines forced and change. No one's going to take over the system. The system will still operate. What we're really worried about though is and certainly don't want to paint a bad picture, but how do we hire employees if we're not an entity? How do we take out loans? Right now, the City of London, we fall under the City of London, and we're kind of an umbrella under them. So I think it's more about the future and establishing this system as its own entity, instead of relying on maybe one or two to support it. So I'm not worried about being forced into anything, but I think we need to be we need to take a course in our own, and direct our own course in this.
We need to be proactive. We need to be proactive.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so there is a motion that's prepared in front of us, and it reads, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Lucan Biddulph approve the continued exploration of the options of the Lake Huron water supply system, moving to a joint municipal services board or municipal services corporation, and further that council direct the mayor to bring forth a motion to the municipal services board steering committee that the Lake Huron water supply system participating municipalities collectively request the Board of Management to undertake a more detailed consultation and study on behalf of the benefiting municipalities that include a thorough legal and financial review and assessment of both the joint municipal services board option and the municipal services corporation option. Before I ask for a mover and a seconder on that, I might just explain, we do have a steering committee meeting tomorrow, and the idea was that that municipalities would be in a position to direct the steering, or just to direct the Board of Management as to how we're going to proceed. Some municipalities, because of the council schedule, will not be in that position. So I'm not too sure if I would bring this motion forward tomorrow or April. I'm still looking for kind of an idea to get a sense of where everybody's at, but my hope is to bring it forth tomorrow. So I would like a mover and a seconder for that motion that's been recommended. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Did you have anything else verbal to bring up, Jeff?
I just have one verbal update, and I just wanted to say that the flow monitoring has been completed. I do have the data back. I don't have the final report on some of the items that are going to be supplied, but I do have the charts, and we have updated charts for the master servicing study, and I was able to supply some information to Stuart, and I would, if anybody wants me to pass any extra information along, I do have it, and I do have the charts and that sort of thing in my office now. So I just wanted to update council on that.
Thank you for that. Parks and Rec, Paul is off this evening. Economic Development, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a report in front of council tonight regarding Summerfest 2022. Staff has been approached to enter into partnership from a sponsor to develop a second concert for Summerfest that could be held on Friday, July 22nd with a rock theme. For the second concert, it's being proposed that the township would fund basically the logistics of the event, staging, washrooms, ticketing, those sort of things, and the sponsor would help fund the actual artists and entertainment portion of the event. We'd also purchase event cancellation insurance as well. We would obviously enter into agreement with the sponsor to ensure that all of these are laid out clearly of funds and sponsoring the event. And the sponsor is basically saying they would like to list the tickets at $65, but there will be a special promo code which would bring them down to $55. With those, given the costs being incurred on our side versus the sponsor side, it would take about 1,100 people to break even for both parties involved. So staff have kind of looked over everything. Our portion would be about $20,000 that would need to be added to the Summerfest budget for 2022. It's kind of what we're asking council to consider adding. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Manders.
I think it makes sense. It's nice that it's the same weekend, and the time and associated with it, tying up the fields and everything. Does it sounds like the risk reward is certainly well worth taking for our community. So I'm certainly in favor of it.
I mean, I guess that's the advantage. I know a couple of years ago, we kind of envisioned this sort of thing since we already have the stage there. You're already kind of doing some of the washrooms and all of those things. So it's kind of one of those, maybe a second night would actually be beneficial for those people who do not enjoy country music.
No, for sure.
There's nobody in Lucan that doesn't like country music. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I really like the idea. I think it's a really good opportunity for us. And having been in the event business for quite a few years myself with the air show and the Balloon Festival and FM 96 Rocks One and all that, I can see the value in this. And I think that everybody is looking for something wonderful to do this summer because it's been such a hard haul for everybody. And I think that would be a great drawing card for that to happen. I mean, there's no downside in my opinion. This is a great idea, so I like it.
Thank you.
Councillor Regan, did you have your hand up? Oh. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, then we do have I guess my question would be increasing the budget. Are you looking to draw money from somewhere else? I mean, best case scenario, it's an in and an out.
Yeah.
How are you going to fund that?
Right. I mean, the actual how it would work is actually any of the funds kind of needed pre-concert would be sponsorship funds. Post-concert, definitely what happens is we get invoices, within 30 days for security, for washrooms, for the PA stage, for all those things. And within that 30 days, you get your revenue from your ticket sales.
Right.
So I don't know how much, I know we have to add it, but I'm not sure how much of actual funds
you're going to need.
I probably will not need until the event is closed, which then we can draw the revenue to cover those costs. But I get having to put it in anyway.
Yeah, in the event that, and I see Catherine's got her hand up.
Yeah.
In the event that our costs are not covered, do you have it in your economic development budget to cover, or are you looking for a change to the budget line and drawing it from somewhere else?
I can let Catherine probably take over how she's going to figure this one out.
So you just come up with the ideas. Catherine?
Yeah, so currently in the budget, the way we have the Summerfest, Winterfest budgeted, we have a revenue line of about 120,000 and the expense line at 60, and we put the difference into a reserve. So if this extra expense we could draw from that, we just have less to put in that budgeted reserve. The amount we want to budget put in the reserve, just probably potentially less, depending on how much more revenue that this event would raise. But there is definitely that room there, that bit of a cushion, because the idea in the budget was it to be completely neutral from the tax rate.
Right.
So what we bring in and what we don't need was going to go in reserves for future events.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, if there's not if there's no more comments or questions on that, then you've got a motion in front of us that council receives report number EDC-03-2022 and accept the recommendation of staff to move forward on an agreement with sponsorship for a second Summerfest concert for Friday, July 22nd, 2022, and works towards securing entertainment for the concert venue. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. Did you have anything else, Lisa?
One other thing, it's more in my elections part. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs in the lower tier municipalities in Middlesex are partnering to bring forward a candidate session. We have this every election cycle. It's more of the regulations, the acts, more the paperwork part of running for office. It will be held virtually, and the news release is coming out tomorrow, so I gave her a heads up. It's going to be April 4th from 3:30 to 5:30. It will be recorded if those people that can attend live during that session. Like I said, the announcement tomorrow will have all the information about how to register and participate in that session. So April 4th.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's it. It occurs to me, Tina, I didn't ask if you had anything.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, but I don't.
Okay. Councillor comments. Councillor Westman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Some of you might remember that a month or so ago, I mentioned about something that was happening in our fellow community of Thames Centre with a large site alteration that was occurring on the property there and had fairly significant impact on neighboring properties. And so what I did was I made some inquiries with staff about what would be involved in establishing a site alteration bylaw for our own municipality to be able to kind of mitigate some of those issues that can happen and then have happened in our community, where and under the bylaw, I would read something to the effect of an alteration means placing a dumping of fill and permitting placing of dumping of fill. So moving large amounts of earth and making major alterations to a property that could have impact on the neighboring properties or affect drainage, waterways, that sort of thing. And it's something that would also help our conservation authorities to be able to better manage some of the issues that occur during those site alterations. If the municipality had the bylaw in place, it would trigger permits and engineering reports and things before a property owner could do a major alteration that could have that kind of impact on a neighboring property. So I'm kind of, I guess, making my official request for staff to bring forward some information on that. Jeff has been extremely helpful in getting information for me and helping me to understand what these bylaws look like. So I do appreciate the effort that Jeff and Julie have done to help inform me and educate me on these things. So that's my official request, is that staff generate a report and bring it back at a later meeting to see what it would take to make that bylaw happen, and we'll go from there. So that's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Westman. I guess just from a procedural standpoint, should it be a formal motion? Should it be a notice of motion? Since you're asking for a report from council. And I guess I would maybe look to my clerks, but I see Jeff's unmuted.
I just unmuted just in case there's a question about the bylaw. But anyways,
okay.
And here I thought you were going to answer it.
You were the planner at the last meeting. Maybe you can take it on clerk duties too.
Madam Mayor, with the indulgence of council, if Councillor Westman wants to make that motion and get a seconder, we can take that motion and prepare the appropriate report.
Okay. All right.
Madam Mayor, through you, I would like to make the motion that staff, I guess, bring a report on this topic and at a later meeting. And I guess I'm not sure how to word it properly, but that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If I can make a suggestion, Madam Mayor, maybe we can word the motion to read that council requests staff to investigate the site alteration bylaw and bring forth a report on the potential for such a bylaw at a future meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
And would one of our colleagues second that? Councillor Regan, you second it? I guess before I call the motion, does council have any questions on this before we go forward? Obviously, a staff report would be coming back that would explain everything in further detail, but anything off the surface, off the top of the head. Deputy Mayor Manders.
No, I've got some concerns with it for our farmers, but the I hope staff will include, if there's other municipalities within the county that have this. I would like to verify, I hope in the staff report at that time, that they also, is there tools in the toolbox of the authority that's asking us for this, that they simply don't want to deal with this issue? And is there a way that they can deal with it? Is it forcing us to deal with something they don't want to deal with? So it's actually a concern of mine, and not really in favor of it, but just comment. Thank you. But I'll wait for the staff report. Wait for the staff report.
Thanks. Councillor Westman.
Something's happened here.
Oh, we can hear you, Alex.
Okay. Yeah, this is not the Conservation Authority's asking for this. This is we've had issues in the other municipalities with large site alterations. We've also had them here in Lucan Biddulph. And so, this is more or less kind of a proactive approach to provide the municipality with the ability to, issue permits, demand some engineering or at least some planning before a property owner, not just farmers, but any other property owner goes ahead and does a major site alteration that can have a negative impact on neighbors. And there's a number of elements within these bylaws that would be very helpful for the process for us, and it would certainly benefit the conservation authorities too. It would help basically build a partnership with the municipalities to make sure that these things are looked after, through that process. So that's to ease Deputy Mayor Manders' concerns on that. This is not coming from the authorities, but it is something that I have recognized through my work with the authorities that would be very helpful for us to have.
Okay. Thank you. Before I call the vote, any other comments? So the motion is on the floor. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you. I would just quickly like to As we all know, our township has some deep Irish roots, so I'd just like to wish everyone a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. That's all.
That is a good wish. I think everybody is looking forward to the festivities on Saturday. So it's been a few years since we've had them, so that is a great comment. And I think we all join in that. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. We don't have any changes to budget. There's no notices of motion. So we'll move into our accounts paid. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. And that's for February 2022, $571,796.06. And a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed? That's carried. We've got two bylaws in front of us. The first one is bylaw 04-2022, and that's to provide for drainage works in the Township of Lucan Biddulph, the County of Middlesex, and that's with regards to the Hardy Drain North 2021. And the motion in front of us is that if no one cares to speak to this bylaw 04-2022 on its third reading, that it be considered to have been read a third time and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Reagan and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed? That's carried. And then bylaw 15-2022, and that's to adopt and confirm all the actions and proceedings of today's council meeting. So the motion in front of us is that if no one cares to speak to bylaw 15-2022 on its first, second, and third reading, that it be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. And a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman, Councillor Reagan, all opposed? That's carried. Just a reminder again that our next meeting on April the 5th is 9 a.m. And if all goes well, it will be in person. And that will be for council and staff. So in front of us now is the adjournment motion. Resolve that council meeting be adjourned at 7:37. And see, it's still light out. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Hodgins. All opposed?